Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tanisha Spain, and joining me in the studio today are three of my faves, three of your faves. Our panelists here, I'll have them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their specialty, and then we're taking off. So, Jim, we'll start with you.
I'm Jim Appleby. I'm a retired entomologist from the Illinois Natural History Survey, so I deal with the insects and mites attacking trees and shrubs.
Okay.
And dang near everything else, really. I'm Marty Alanya. I specialize in small landscapes for, private yards, perennials and shrubs and trees.
A generalist, if you will. All right, Miss Kay.
I'm Kay Carnes. I'm a Champaign County Master Gardener, and my interest is herbs and gardening in general.
And I know you do some volunteering at Allerton,
I
right?
do. I work with the herb garden. They have an herb garden at Allerton, and that's kind of my baby. So
Very
I
nice.
help with them. And,
I see their calendar starting to get filled again with spring events. There's a bee event in early April that we're going to try to make it to. So I love to see those spring events popping back up on the calendar.
they have great events, and something for everybody.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, well, you know what? We'll start with you. Tell us about your show and tell. What'd you bring today?
Well, I brought a strawberry plant because this is a good time to get them in, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about planting them. As you can see, they have these. I bought these at a local nursery, and it was a bag of them. Supposed to be 25. I planted 33 plants.
Yeah. They never skimp you. Yeah, there's always
Which
more
is
and
good,
stuff left.
and they're doing really well. But you want to dig a really deep hole in loose dirt. I have mine in a raised bed, so it's pretty friable. And when you, so you want to dig a pretty deep hole, probably 6 to 8 inches deep. And then you just put the plant in. And you want to leave this part out because that's where the leaves and stems come from. So you want to cover it with dirt up to about here.
Right up to that point.
And you want to plant them about 8 to 12 inches apart in the rows. Or they can be scattered, but they need 8 to 10 inches apart. And I planted these before we had that cold spell, and they're growing like crazy.
They're still doing good?
So, yeah.
Awesome.
They're doing
Any
great.
special care when you're planting them in? I know that some people fan out roots, or, do you have to do anything like that when you're...
Not really. You just want to make sure that the roots are covered. You can a little bit, but it's as long as your soil is really loose.
Okay.
It's not quite so important.
Gotcha. Now, will you be able to harvest from those the first year?
No, these are everbearing, which means they produce fruit all season long, as opposed to a June-bearing plant that just bears in June, but they have usually larger and more strawberries on them, so there's kind of
The trade-off there.
That's the trade-off.
Yeah. Any special care, anything that you do during the growing season? Do you fertilize? Do you...
Well, a little compost. I usually put a little compost just on top around them. But they're pretty hardy, and they're really pretty carefree once you get them established.
Yeah, once they're established, they're everywhere.
Can you get a close-up shot of the roots on this side? And how far above the root do you want to plant them?
Well,
Kay?
you want to, this is the crown, and you want to plant it just, you can see the roots coming out here, so you want that completely covered.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go too high.
But no deeper. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy about how carefully you have to plant strawberries or they'll die or something, but you can see the roots. It's like a little hula skirt on there. I mean, it's pretty easy to define where the roots stop and the top starts.
It is. Some of them weren't quite as easy as this one. because they were a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
But you can really tell the crowd.
It is. I've had people ask me that before, and it's not that complicated.
No,
Really.
it's not.
If you throw the ones away that you think are going to die on the compost pile, they'll grow.
They're in the compost.
Just spite you.
They'll
know.
produce
Last
in the
question I
compost
have.
pile, so
Do
it's
you
so
have
rude.
to divide strawberries? Can they get too crowded in one area? And if you do divide them, when is a good time to do that?
Well, if you space them far enough apart
Mm-hmm.
when you plant them, that's not really going to be a problem.
Okay, good to know.
But like I said, they're pretty hardy. You can dig, if they do get too close together, you can dig them up and just
Mm-hmm.
gently pull them apart and replant them.
Replant it. Okay.
And when the strawberry plant makes a runner, which they will, and you'll see them kind of grow. There'll be a long stem, and then there'll be another little plant. What do you do with those?
Leave them,
Yeah,
Just leave them.
just if they're outside the bed, you just
put them back in.
poke your finger in, put them there where you want them to grow in a little bare spot, and
There you go.
they'll take right
That's
off.
why you want to plant them fairly far apart.
Yeah, so you have
when
room
you
for
first
that.
plant 'em.
Excellent. Thank you, Kay. All right, we've got a question about linden trees suckers for Marty, the tree lady. Donna Blackmore writes in, I have a linden tree. It's about 25 years old. I have a problem with suckers coming up around the base, and it's getting worse every year. Is there something that I can put on the suckers to kill them, but not hurt the tree? So, what do you do about the suckers?
No, there's nothing you can kill the suckers with that won't damage the tree, because the suckers are growing out of the tree. Most likely the tree is under some stress, or it got planted too deeply or too shallowly, and since it's big, it might have settled in the ground, but it might just be under stress because we've had some odd weather patterns for the last couple summers. Maybe it got a little bit too dry for too long, so it's just trying to live. That's all it's trying
That's
to
like
do.
an insurance policy, right?
It is.
Like if I go down,
Yeah.
I've got these guys
That's
to continue the job, right?
There's an analogy I will steal, but I hadn't occurred to me right away.
I think like very childlike.
That's,
like
that's
big
good.
trees, little
Simple.
trees.
Yeah, that's
You know,
that's true.
I've
You
got
got it
kids,
going on there.
so I'm
Yeah.
used to breaking things down. But I like
That's
that.
good.
It's trying to
Yeah,
live, and
it's
it's
just trying to
insuring.
live.
That's an insurance policy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And crab apples will do that. Amelancher will do that. I mean, I have both of those trees in my yard. I hate that they sucker, but
So you just nip
just
them?
cut them off. Cut them as closely as you can. And mulching the tree, feeding the tree a little bit might not be a bad idea, because the tree wants to live. So if you can encourage growth up there instead of down at the bottom, that'd be your best
That
idea.
opens up another can of worms. So when you are feeding or watering a tree, do you do it at the base, or are you supposed to step back and look at the canopy? How does one properly feed and water a tree?
Usually you step back from the tree and you can see where the ends of the branches go.
Okay.
And that's called the drip line, because when it rains, that's the last place out where the rain falls off at the drip line, where as far out as the branches will go. So inside there, the tree is almost a mirror image underground. So it's like this on the top, but it's like that on the bottom underneath the ground. So wherever the drip line is, you want to fertilize out to there, especially on a tree as big as yours. It's not going to do you any good to feed it by the trunk. It's all the roots are just like the branches. They're big at first. They get bigger and bigger, but as they grow out, they get smaller and smaller, and the tips of the roots are the ones that take up the moisture and the nutrients that the tree has to have. So I would do this out by the drip line. You don't have to mulch it clear out to the drip line, but it wouldn't hurt
Okay.
to mulch it a little bit to hold some moisture, especially if it's kind of a dry spot. And when I water a tree, I do start at the trunk, because I prop it up on the trunk a little bit, and the water and I put it at a trickle, no bigger than your pinky finger or a pencil. And I'll put it there and I'll let it run for a couple hours. You know, water bill be damned. You want to save the tree or don't you? So So it'll run, you know, and it'll just trickle out, and it'll keep trickling. Pretty soon the soil all underneath that tree is going to be all soggy. In about an hour's worth, I'll move it around the other side of the tree to make sure that all of it, all those little roots out by the drip line get watered, but real slowly. It soaks in real slowly. So that's a good drink for a tree. When it storms real badly and everything's all watery and it's messy to walk in the yard, that's the best kind of weather
That's a
for
good day for a
trees.
tree.
It's a good day if you're a tree, that's right. So
Awesome. Okay. All right, Jim. So we've gotten a lot of questions, and we've all been talking about the cicadas that are coming soon. Okay. I'm not real thrilled about it. But this
Tanisha's
is like a,
been talking about
you know, for entomologists, I'm
cicadas.
sure this is like Christmas.
A lot.
So Jim is going to walk us through what we're going to be seeing, and then there's a plot twist at the end, which I'm not going to share because I don't want to give it away. So we'll start with this guy.
Well, before I say anything about the cicada, let me say this, that I'm not the cicada expert in the Midwest. There are several entomologists that are.
Dedicated specifically.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And one is Dr. Gene Christie. He's a faculty person at Mount St. Joseph University. That establishment is near Cincinnati, Ohio. He's been working on cicadas for many, many years. So he's really the expert. And when you have another one at the Natural History Survey that just became a staff member there, and her name is Dr. Catherine Dana. And so those people are the specialists. I simply took these photographs 13 years ago when they had the emergence. So let's just go through and look at some of those photos.
So this is what we'll be seeing.
Well, this is, you know, they spend 13 or 17 years underground. And then when they are about to emerge, and that's generally in late May, when the soil temperature is about 64 degrees, they'll emerge. Generally, that's about 64 degrees, the soil temperature Fahrenheit. And they will emerge in tremendous numbers. Now, if they're in a sort of a wood area, they'll look like what we see here. You see they make a little chimney, and they emerge. If it's real dry, it was simply just a hole in the ground. Now, this next photograph is a picture of the newly emerged cicada. This is one that just emerged from their shell. When that nymphal skin splits down the back, then the adult emerges from that cast skin. And so the photograph here shows the adult emerging from the cast skin. And these nymphs will climb up any vertical surface, and sometimes it's a tree trunk like we see here, or it could be a fence post, and they'll change into the adult stage here. This slide shows a topical view of what an insect looks like, and underneath that is the old cast skin. Now, if you're wanting to eat cicadas, you want to get them when they're in their stage here, and because they're nice and tender at that time. So anyway, I need to mention that.
it's worth the trip.
I'll talk about frying them a little bit later.
Oh, good.
Now they emerge in tremendous numbers, and here we see a huge number of them. And when they emerge, the males are the only ones that sing. They have an organ on the side of the abdomen. They vibrate, and it can be extremely loud. But it's only the males that sing. But when they sing, they attract the females. And the females will come over to that area. And a female that wants to be mated will flick their wings a little bit. Here we see a pair mating, and they mate with the tip of one abdomen connecting to the tip of the other abdomen.
No kissing.
No kissing.
Okay.
And anyway, after about a couple days then, the female starts laying her eggs. This is what injures the trees when they egg lay. If you look closely at this photograph, you see at the very front of the insect, you see that little black tube. So it's actually feeding on this plant. And so they do a certain amount of feeding, but that's insignificant. Injury from their feeding is insignificant. But look further back on the abdomen, you see that other black, looks like a little black object
Like a
there.
stick?
Yeah, they're
Yes.
like a little, that's where they, eggs go into that and go into the tissue themselves. So that's when they're egg laying. They stick that over. It's called an ovipositor in the stem, and lay their eggs in that area. So that's what causes the injury. And then here it looks. This is a branch of an oak tree, a white oak tree, and you can see the injury on that. Now, generally, they like to lay their eggs in a tree branches that are about the size of your little finger. They're not going to lay eggs in great big branches, but finger-sized branches they like to lay their eggs in. Cicadas live only about 3 to 4 weeks at the most, but here's the
Seems longer.
photograph showing all these tiny little eggs in here. Now, the eggs take quite a long time to hatch, generally about 6 weeks before the eggs hatch. And here we see a photograph of the young, very young nymphs, very tiny. Most people don't see them. And then these little nymphs will drop to the ground and burrow in. And at first, they probably feed on grass roots, but then later, as they keep burrowing, they'll feed on the stems of roots of trees. And really don't cause that much damage when they're real young. Now, if your plants are within, say, 1,000 feet of a forested area, you may have some trouble with the cicadas laying their eggs in the branches. If it's farther than that, they really don't cause any harm. I mean, they'll be around, but they like to lay their eggs in trees where they fed as nymphs. So it really should not be concerned about controlling this. A long time ago, Dr. Fred Miller did some tests up at Morton Arboretum, that's near Chicago, and any of the insecticides that he applied were not effective anyway.
Oh, wow.
So if you do have, say, a small ornamental tree near a forested area you want to protect, you probably want to go and just put netting over that tree.
Yeah, you talked about that a couple weeks ago, getting the big netting,
Yeah.
the bags to put
Yeah,
over.
and there's several different companies that make netting. You can go to the internet and just search for insect netting,
Okay.
and there's several companies. I would call a company before you purchase it because you can describe how big the tree is and wide, et cetera, et cetera.
So smaller, newer, more tender trees are the ones that are most at risk, not the big
Well,
established.
unless they're near, like I said, they like to lay their eggs in branches that are about the size of your little
Gotcha.
finger.
Okay. Now, here's the part that I alluded to earlier.
Now, they can be eaten, and we probably should be eating insects. They're very high in protein, and a lot of when you think about people throughout the world, they consume insects because of that. I mean,
Because they don't have chicken. What?
well,
That might be out of necessity.
and
But
then,
you're right. You're right.
I mean,
They do.
Nutritionally,
it's all cultural. And why?
yes.
Yeah.
What do we? Look,
Yeah.
we eat oysters, and I would say oysters are not
And shrimp,
and shrimp,
Yeah.
and lobsters,
crawfish, and
crawfish.
So
Anyway,
were these at the white tender stage?
yes, they were at the white tender stage. You could fry them, I guess, a little bit later. Now, I fried them in olive oil and brought them in, served them like this. I mean, look how fancy they are.
Voila.
But I was,
Yeah.
Mike Brunk, he was a former city forester here. He and Mike and I were the only ones that consumed any.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised.
No.
Have you ever eaten cicada?
And with any luck, I will not.
What about you, Kay?
No.
I think what seems to me when I was at school, we had some.
Really?
Try,
Oh, my
I
gosh.
mean, this is
No.
many, many, many years.
Well, if you're brave enough,
But-
Jim says bring him on in and
I'd
fry 'em
throw
up.
in a little garlic when you fry them. That's
But
There you go, the herb lady. We could make a dish here.
like I said, I don't think they'll be in any gourmet
No.
restaurants. Or,
If you could just, and I asked you off camera, but you couldn't even put a word to the flavor. It
no,
just,
it's hard to describe a flavor. They're just sort of blah.
yeah, just sort of blah.
But if you put them in a batter and maybe
Now we're talking. That's America.
Air fryer.
Air fryer, yes.
That's right.
Maybe
Batter
air fryer.
fried.
When we talk
Maybe.
about battering and frying, that's where I could get behind it because that's
There's nothing like a plate of cicada gravy with
All right, let's. Well, so are you
Nothing
going to
like
eat
it.
them this year? Are you planning on making another
Well,
batch?
I wasn't too impressed the last 13 years ago.
I just feel like maybe if you brought them in, we could have DJ and Taylor and some of our crew
could.
members, excluding myself.
We could.
Have a bite.
Maybe we should do that.
Yeah. So keep us posted on
All right.
those. We've got about 5 minutes, so
I'm gonna
let's
be busy
get
that day.
a couple of questions in.
Oh, P.S. Also, he froze them
Oh yes.
before he cooked them. I see you just throw them in there alive and put the lid on like a lobster. No, I
Froze them first. Froze them first. While we're talking about cicadas, Pam wants to know, she's surrounded by farmland and has mostly pine. Will she have to worry about any issues?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless those pine trees are 1,000 feet from a forest that had a heavy infestation 13 years ago, there's no need to control.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We've got this picture. This is from Lorraine Herforth. She says that she pulled some mums into the garage to overwinter and watered them a bit in February. They're still hanging on. They're still green in there. She's asking when to put these in the ground. What do you think?
I'd wait until you were going to plant anything else this year, like after frost date, May 15th. True, they're perennials and they're hardy, but even when you plant other perennials, I'd still wait until it's kind of past frost. They don't need that extra additional strain when they're trying to get established. But now, yes, in the spring is when you plant mums. Because you plant them in the fall because they're so pretty, and you buy them and they're really crispy and they break off.
Yes.
And you can't get them in there good, and you don't do
Yes.
the things you should, and even if you do, it's really unlikely that they'll live over the winter. So plant them now and look like a genius in October.
Make your neighbors jealous in the
Yes.
fall.
How come yours always come back? Because I'm smart.
Yes, because Marty told me how to do it. Let's see. Lorraine Nemo writes, I love Mid-American Gardener, thank you, and I've learned a lot. I've heard that it's best to trim shrub roses when the forsythia bloom. However, this year's been unusually warm in February and in March, and the forsythia bloomed in early March. Should we trim now or should we wait?
I like to trim roses when they start leafing out. I like to see it, not the full leaf that doesn't have to have buds on it, but, a mouse ear sized leaf. When you see them coming on about the size of your fingernail, then you're like, oh, okay, because you get a lot of dieback on roses in the winter, don't you? I do. So you know where the green spot is. Please don't shear them. Just don't do that. But, prune them back, take the larger pieces out, the typical pruning. But you can still see what the structure of the plant is, but you can also tell which branches are not leafing out. So you know, it's like, oh, that'll leaf out later. No, it won't, that big stick in there. So wait till they start to leaf a little bit. You'll see some more growth from the ground. I don't know how you're talking about pruning roses, but I usually wait until they leaf out a little bit.
We've got 2 minutes left. Let's see. Robert says, I seem to have a lot of roly-polies under my plants in my garden beds. They are helpful by eating decay, but sometimes I see a lot in one place. Is there such a thing as too many woodlice? So,
I don't think so.
the more the merrier?
The more the merrier.
We were talking about these before the show. They're really beneficial, right?
Yeah.
So
And they're interesting too.
They are. They're kind of fun. Now that's one insect I'm not afraid of.
And they're
Just kind of rolling.
and they're
around.
And they're not an
ancient.
insect, by the way.
Oh, darn it. I tried.
But, they're closely related.
Aren't they like what are those trilobites or some of those old ancient
Oh, yeah.
thing? Yeah.
Triobites.
Yeah.
Triobites.
I didn't know if I had the
See?
name right or not.
I've learned something new every time you're on this show. All right, folks. Well, we are out of time. Thank you to all three of you for coming in. And if you're going to cook up some cicadas, make sure you send us pictures and any of your questions with the pictures to yourgarden@gmail.com. We'll have several more shows before our buddies arrive. But if you do plan on eating some, we would love to see. So, send
Video
us-
it.
And their opinion of what they were
and your
tasting.
opinion of what they taste like.
Yeah.
Video 'em.
Because Jim can't put a word to the taste. Were they crunchy all the way through?
No, these were soft because I collected them, just when they emerged as
Gotcha.
adults, so they were soft.
Oh, they were soft. Okay. Oh my. I'm interested to see what happens. So
Deep
if you-
fried with a crackly crunch.
Yes. Deep fried, sauteed,
That's
whatever you'd like to do. So we would love to see you eating those. But thank you guys for coming in.
Moses.
Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you want to ask any questions or send us your pictures, it's yourgarden@gmail.com. And we will see you next time. Good night.